Well, hey there, guys. I'm Axel Beast, and this is the Curiosity Shop, the ZeldaEngine.net video mailbag where I answer your Zelda questions. And for this week, they're gonna be Zelda music questions for a lot of them. Anyway, not all of them, just a lot of them. For our first question, Hugo asks, "What's the best Zelda song to dance to?" I mean, I don't know. What am I, some kind of expert on dancing? I can't dance. Have you seen me dance? I mean, for me, I guess I just gotta pick the Song of Storms, because all you have to do to dance to the Song of Storms, at least if we're being accurate here, is to spin! Hylian Evan asks, "What's one Zelda song you always loved and still listen to even to this very day?" Well, I mean, so many, right? I mean, the Zelda series has an infamously, or famously, good soundtrack, in general, with very few exceptions, honestly. But for me, like, I mean, the way you worded it kind of excludes recent stuff, so my beloved Skyward Sword maybe doesn't feature so much, or at least it wouldn't be fair to pick it, because how long have I really been listening to it, right? So, like, for me, it's like, a lot of my favorites, my top two, pretty much, are Stone Tower Temple and The Song of Time, from Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. So, you know, those feature very prominently, are ones I've listened to over and over again, many different renditions and remixes over the years. But I guess I'd have to go with, to give a good fancy answer, one of the ones I've been listening to for so long, even though it's continually dropped in my top favorites, because so many new good songs have been added to the series. It's the A Link to the Past dungeon theme. That's a classic for me because it's such a mysterious, interesting theme. Like, people talk about the Dark World dungeon in A Link to the Past being cool. I mean, it's cool, it's spooky, but it's kind of just spooky. For me, like, the Light World dungeon theme is just, it's a little spooky, but it's also just eerie. It's mysterious, it's adventurous, it's like, you know, it's just very interesting. It's like, you know, what's gonna be around the next corner music. I don't know, I just think it's one of the coolest tracks, and I've listened to so many versions. It's still one of my favorites. I'm always gonna love it, even if it drops out of my top 10 someday. But yeah. Tristan asks, what do you think about Breath of the Wild's musical score and how they favored subtle atmospheric tracks over the grand and adventurous tunes we have come to love? This applies particularly to the overworld, where most of the time playing the game is spent. Do you think it fits the game, or would you have preferred to have more memorable background music as you explore the world? It seems to have gotten a mixed response so far, so I'm curious as to your thoughts on it. Well, I've given a more general answer on this before, recently in Mailbag 136, otherwise known as the first one in 10 million years. But, you know, I could expand a little more on it. The bottom line is, like, I think that Breath of the Wild soundtrack does fit the game a lot. It's a very lonely game. It's a very, it's got that post-apocalyptic thing to it. And it also has, you know, it's just a game where you're exploring the wilderness. It's Breath of the Wild, you know? So it's fundamentally a game where I think that kind of atmospheric stuff works. It really makes sense with the setting and exploring this wilderness, you get the idea. But it's also not my favorite. What I would expand on that, though, is, like, one of the things that I think gets me about Breath of the Wild is not necessarily an issue with it being, you know, atmospheric. It's not my favorite, but it works very well for the game. It's that, you know, I feel like a lot of the times it's using either the same or very similar music. The entire, like, almost, like, the entire eastern section of the overworld, you know, the areas between, you know, the Great Plateau, including the Great Plateau, Hateno Village, a lot of the areas up in Akala, things like that. You hear a lot of the same music. They reuse a lot of the same tracks that are like the day and night themes. And there's definitely exceptions, but it feels like for a huge swath of that area, in particular, you're hearing a lot of the same music. And I feel like, you know, it's like in the older games where, you know, Hyrule Field would be a big area and have, you know, its own music. And you'd hear it probably a little more than some of the other overworld themes. But that's a lot less overworld. Breath of the Wild is so huge. I feel like they could have implemented more themes and more diverse themes in some of these areas. So one of my most memorable moments was going up to the spooky ice region and getting in the northeastern section of the map and climbing up the mountain, and suddenly this spooky version of the dragon theme starts playing. I'm like, what is going on? And I feel like the game maybe could have used a little more of that, so I don't know, some more diversity in its atmospheric themes might have been cool, or at least mix it up a little so the atmospheric themes feel a little more special, maybe. I don't know. That Pug asks, what older Zelda songs would you like remixed in the style of Breath of the Wild like they did with the Dragon Roost Island theme? Oh, God, there's a lot of interesting, there's just so many interesting tracks throughout the series, but I think I'm going to give something based on the previous two answers on the along these lines. I would say the Light World dungeon theme from Link to the Past. I mean, obviously it's one of my favorites, but I feel like, talking about spooky music, talking about different spins on the kind of vibe that you get in Breath of the Wild to, like, diversify some of the areas, I feel like having something a little more eerie, but like that, like I said, what's around the next corner kind of track. I feel like doing something like that, injecting that into some area, like, I don't know, some of the ruins or the islands or some kind of underground area, perhaps. Something like that. I mean, honestly, I could talk about it, putting caves in Breath of the Wild or spookier areas, underground areas, dungeon-like or interior environments a lot, but I feel like that among all the music I think could have been really interesting in the game. I think a track like that could have not only been cool to hear in a subtler way, because it's a subtler song than a lot of the dungeon themes in the series already, but also, so it might be a good fit, but also it might have contributed something really interesting to Breath of the Wild. I think that might have been pretty cool. Joshua32 asks, what Legend of Zelda song would you like to see make a return in higher quality? Well, I'm a little uncertain as to what you mean. Do you mean the original Legend of Zelda? If so, I would probably say... I mean, I like the dungeon theme and the final dungeon theme a lot, but they've come back. I feel like I would like to hear, like, the Game Over theme. That's kind of a cute little song, a really interesting little one that you don't hear at all, even though it's kind of instrumental to the original game, given how much I died in that game. So, so maybe that one, but I feel like if you were going to expand it, like, I would say Spirit Tracks, so the whole soundtrack, because I love that soundtrack, but it sounds so bad on the DS sound. But I guess if I had to pick, like, an older one, make it, like, a good, interesting answer, I would probably say the battle theme from Adventure of Link, Zelda 2, I feel like that is the standout for the game, from the game for me. And it's just such a cool, epic theme. Something about it feels really interesting. It feels, I don't know, like a little exotic at the same time as very much the typical dun dun dun. I just did this song. I was like, it's like some kind of like epic dun, 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 heroic thing, but I literally just started doing the song, and I feel like that's the best example of how like subliminal that song is ingrained in. And I haven't even played that game, Zelda 2, but I love that song. It's just so cool. That one. Give me that one. I'd love to hear that, like epic orchestral. That'd be sweet. Quinn asks, what instrument was your favorite in Majora's Mask? I mean, come on. I mean, I guess some of you like the guitar or whatever it was, but for me, it's gotta be the Deku Pipes. I mean, I literally love those things so much, how they sound so much. Listen to the Song of Time, and granted, it's one of my favorites, but listen to how cool it sounds in the pipes. I turn into the Deku form just to hear the Song of Time in the pipes when I play the game to rewind and save the game. I mean, come on, it's the Deku Pipes. He looks hilarious in those things. But hey, who cares what I think about this stuff, right? Obviously, these are questions you guys gotta weigh in on in the comments. I mean, you gotta tell me how wrong I am about some of these picks, because I got weird picks sometimes. I mean, let me tell you, I got some weird picks. I can keep going. You want me to talk about all the weird Zelda songs that I like? Dualmark asks, does Patricia Summersett in Breath of the Wild sound at all like you'd imagine Princess Zelda's sound? Regardless of that answer, who would you cast as Princess Zelda if you had to say? You can pick any voice actress you want, regardless of union status, just someone that Nintendo can realistically work with. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I could say I had someone in mind, but realistically, I'd just be like saying, I wouldn't be like, Tara Strong or Ron Perlman, two of the only voice actors I can even name. I mean, there's more, but those are the big ones. But realistically, I'd be like, that character from that anime, that's who I would like to voice, stuff like that. I don't know much about voice acting. As for whether or not I expected her to sound like that, I can know, but that's because every Zelda is so fundamentally different. I couldn't imagine Skyward Sword Zelda sounding like that. But that's Skyward Sword Zelda. Maybe if she did some more work on a different personality, I could see her as Twilight Princess Zelda, maybe. But it's kind of an odd answer because no, because this is a completely different character than we've seen before. Every Zelda is fairly different. I imagine them all with different voices. She's not unfitting. She's the only voice I can hear when I think of Breath of the Wild Zelda at this point. She fits. Yeah, she's not like an unfitting voice actress. I think she's fine for that character. JP asks, how do you feel about the never-ending cycle of Ganon, Zelda, and Link being reborn in every game and telling the same predetermined story over and over? I don't, because that's not. Okay, so in the case of Ganon, that's actually just not even the case. It's not a Ganon being reborn, or even a Ganon successor in most of the games. It's Ganon. It's the same guy. He's not being reborn. He might be being revived, but it's the same guy. He just keeps on trucking, guys. Woo. The main exception is Four Swords Adventures, where he is literally just another Ganon for some reason, according to Hyrule Historia. Which, I mean, it could be a rebirth, but it also could just be it's a popular Gerudo name. As for Zelda, I just think it would be... I mean, it's not impossible that she would be a reincarnation, but I think it's, one, weird in general to do a story. Not impossible, not unheard of, but weird to do a story where a character is a reincarnation of themselves and their powers are being passed down through their bloodline. So you're reincarnating as your own descendant with your own power. Like, what? I mean, you could do a story like that, but I feel like if the story isn't addressing that detail, why would you assume? Because it seems like it's like too many similar things, but which are very different going together, and it's like, huh? It feels less elegant than if it had just been, okay, they're inheriting the power, the role, etc. And it's like kind of like how the King of Hyrule is always something do Hyrule or something, you know what I mean? The Hyrule is always the last name, and they always have similar kinds of names. It's like the Legacy. I feel like the Zelda thing is like that. It's a popular Hylian name. What are you gonna say? As for Link, I don't know. I feel the same. I feel like it diminishes from the kind of humble hero origin setup that he has in a lot of the games, particularly the Wind Waker, which is all about this like non-destined hero earning the right to have the god's power through sheer strength. I think it takes away from that, the idea that he's actually just a reincarnation of some old hero. Not to mention, it's still not even possible, because it's the same descendant issue. The hero Shade is the ancestor, is the Ocarina of Time Link, and is the ancestor of the Twilight Princess Link. So it's not even just that, oh, you reincarnated as your own descendant. You literally talk to him. No! So, the cycle thing is interesting. I think it's made interesting particularly by Skyward Sword storylines with the goddess power being passed down in the sacred holy bloodline or whatever, as well as the stuff with Demise, his anger just carrying just agents of his malice throughout history. But yeah, no, I don't think that there's a cycle of rebirth or anything exactly. It's just one really, really stubborn guy. Real. Alright guys, that's it for this time, and be sure to play those Zelda questions to the tune of the contact information in the description? I was kind of reaching with that one. And I'll see you guys later!